This conference will now be recorded.
Right, so thank you everybody for joining us today for our updates on the COVID-19 situation and some suggestions for future steps for businesses to take, as well as a question and answer session. I'm Deirdre Robertson. I'm the Executive Director at FrostburgFirst, and we are the Main Street program here for Frostburg. So first, just a brief update on information coming out from the Department of Health. As of this morning, there's now a total of 423 cases in the state. There are still no reported cases in Allegheny County, although there are now 3 cases reported in Garrett County. So it's moving a little closer now. They do expect that number to continue to increase in the next week or two. And then hopefully at that point, we'll start getting an idea of where the peak is going to be. Same information that we've been hearing everywhere else applies. I won't go through all of it, but of course, try to maintain that 6 feet distance, stay home if you can, avoid close personal contact, and wash your hands as much as humanly possible. So that's sort of the information there. The testing is available. It is still extremely limited. So they do recommend that you contact your healthcare provider if you think you have symptoms or need to be tested, and they will generally make a determination on whether you should go to the hospital and be tested or if there's a site where you can be tested. So it's still somewhat limited there. So moving on from that, a few items from of legislation passed over the past week that will impact our small businesses. The first was passed by Congress, and that was the Families First Response Act. This law requires small business employers, basically 1 to 499 employees, to provide any employees who work for the employer, regardless of existing benefit policies, 2 weeks of emergency paid sick leave, and an additional 10 weeks of paid family and medical leave. So one of the questions that people have brought up to me about this is, sorry about that. If you have to close your business during this time, do you have to pay sick leave to workers who are just off for that reason? No. This only applies to workers who are having to take off because they are in a mandatory quarantine situation. They've been advised by a doctor to be quarantined, or they are sick and likely to be experiencing COVID-19. Any other reason to take sick leave would still apply to your normal policies. So this is only as it relates to COVID-19. Because it's recognized that this is a significant burden to small businesses, employers are entitled to a refundable tax credit equal to the amount of the qualified paid sick leave that you put out per quarter. So basically your employers are required to pay up to 100% of the normal salary for workers. But they do have, and it depends partly on if you're in a state that, the federal minimum or the minimum wage is higher than the federal minimum wage, you are only responsible to pay up to the federal minimum wage based on this act. That's probably going to change due to state laws. The tax credits, it's basically counted against your Social Security and Medicaid and retirement. And so you receive tax credits up to what that would be. If your costs based on this exceed what you would receive from that, from those initial tax credits, you will be reimbursed for any additional costs. They're still working through the process for providing the procedures, sort of how to get this information. The tax credits are advanceable, so you don't have to wait until you're reporting at the end of the year or at the end of the quarter. You should be able to have an escrow fund that you can draw from. And so information regarding how those funds are to be accessed are still being developed. As that comes out, I'll provide that information as soon as I come across that. Another piece of legislation that passed, this is through the state, was the Public Health Emergency Protection Act. And this is as of March 19th. No fees or copays for COVID-19 tests, which should help some with insurance costs. No price gouging is permitted. Workers cannot be terminated from their jobs because they have been isolated or quarantined. Again, this does not apply if you have to reduce hours or lay off employees due to your business not being able to support them at that time or because of closures. This is only that you cannot fire an employee or terminate an employee because they have been quarantined mandatorily. Also, unemployment benefits have shifted. Unemployment benefits are now available to workers who can't work simply because they are quarantined, at risk for exposure, or have to care for a family member with COVID-19. So this might also help to mitigate some of the requirements based on the Family Leave Act as well. And those unemployment benefits, we'll get into that in just a moment, sort of the process for that. So from the Maryland Department of Labor, if you are needing to have a permanent layoff or temporary layoff or reduce hours significantly for your employees, you can start a bulk claim for your employees by sending a list of the names of all of them to the addresses below there. If you're looking for assistance, also there is conflicting information on sole proprietors, if sole proprietors are going to be eligible for unemployment because they have to close during this period. That's still kind of going back and forth. We haven't gotten a solid answer on that. I'll let you know as soon as I hear. And again, these slides will be posted at the end of the webinar so that you can go to all of the links here. But they do make it possible to submit those bulk claims online so that you can get that ball rolling, and any employees that you're having to reduce their hours or give them a temporary layoff can take advantage of unemployment benefits. Also, any licenses, permits, registrations, any other authorizations issued by the state will be extended until the 30th day after the state of emergency is lifted. So anything that would be expiring at this time, you don't have to worry about. That also may cause some delays in anything that you were in the application stage for as well. So that's something to keep in mind. The income tax deadline, both federally and through the state, has been extended to July 15th, 2020. They will not, you won't be responsible for any interest or penalty for late payment for 2019 tax payments as long as they are made by July 15th. No additional extension forms are required at this point. I would check with your accountants, or take a look at whatever whoever actually does the taxes for you, and double check and see if you're eligible. Businesses who have already paid their Maryland sales and use taxes for March early, you can request a refund of that payment if you're needing that to kind of try to bridge the gap here at this point. And if you continue to file and pay by the extended due date, you will receive a waiver of interest and penalties. So they're doing everything they can to take some of those burdens off of our small businesses as far as quarterly taxes and your annual taxes go. And it's very similar from the U.S. Treasury Department. It's the same kind of deferment until July 15th without penalties or interests. So now we get into the funding opportunities that have been announced. As you know, nationally, there are Small Business Administration disaster loans available. It's now confirmed that all counties in Maryland are eligible to apply for these. These loans can be used to pay fixed debts that you already have, payroll, accounts payable, other bills that can't be paid because of the COVID impact. The interest rate is 3.75 for small businesses. And it is a rather extensive application. I'll kind of go through some of that with you here in a moment. And there are other options that are available as well before that. Through the state, they now have 3 separate funding opportunities. One of them is the COVID-19 Layoff Aversion Fund. This is not usable for paying payroll. This is not a way of keeping people on staff and by paying their salary. What it is a way of purchasing remote access equipment. So if you don't currently have the ability to allow people to telework, this would give you that capability to purchase equipment or software, whatever, these conferencing like this go-to meeting or whatever, after a while you had to pay for it, things like that. If you're still open, if you're a restaurant that's providing carry-out service or something along those lines, this would allow you to access funds to provide on-site cleaning, sanitation services, other ways that you can prevent those layoffs or closures. So the idea here is that these funds would be used to prevent you from having to shut the business down, if you are one of the businesses who's allowed to still operate at this point. So we'll get into, I'll happy to answer any questions about that as we move forward. Some of the other funding opportunities, the Small Business COVID-19 Emergency Relief Loan Fund. This is through the state of Maryland. It's a $75 million loan fund, for-profit businesses only, no interest or principal payments due for the first 12 months. And then after that turns to a 36-month loan with a rate of 2% per annum. So that is significantly less than the SBA disaster. And they are a little bit more flexible with some of the application materials here, and more, I think, adaptable to working with small businesses. There's also the Emergency Relief Grant Fund. This is up to 10,000. Excuse me, grants up to $10,000. And it does, of course, has to be a business that's been in existence since prior to March 9th. There's more information on there as well. This is probably the one most of you are going to be interested in, just because there are no interest rates, there's no repayment of this. So this is meant to assist businesses with disrupted operations solely due to COVID-19. So this is meant to be sort of a replacement for if you don't have a business interruption insurance, if you need to, be responsible to your financial partners, things like that. So here's some of the requirements that they've talked about. Business must be in good standing, which basically means you have to have paid your taxes in the previous year. Excuse me. Annual revenues cannot exceed 5 million, so that's a pretty broad group that we're looking at there. You must have employees on your payroll and you've paid payroll taxes for. And you are looking, again, this is not meant to be sort of a silver bullet solution here. They do expect businesses to seek longer term funding, or develop other practices that are likely to help the business sustain, not just relying only on this. Eligible uses, you can use this for payroll, rent, mortgage, utilities, pretty much anything that you need normally that your typical income would help with. So there's sort of where the information, that's what they're looking for as far as eligibility goes. Again, if anybody wants assistance going through these applications, I'm happy to provide that individually so that we can try to make sure you're getting the best out of that grant fund. And then also there's not a full amount of information provided. They're expecting this to be released on Friday, but any organization or business who is able to produce the personal protective equipment that's needed by our hospitals and healthcare workers will be eligible for this incentive program. So as soon as we get more information on that, we'll be sharing that as well. So those are the major funding opportunities that are available right now. Again, we're still waiting to hear what comes out of Congress this week, because there may be some additional funds there. There have been talks about if you have applied and received one of the SBA loans, you may be eligible for loan forgiveness. But again, we're waiting to hear exactly what that's going to look like. So I wouldn't count on anything from there just yet. So before you apply for any of these funding opportunities, there are a couple steps that you can take first. One of the things that they were talking to us about in the webinar yesterday was that there is a high volume of requests for the funds. There's going to be a lot of applications going through, which means that there may be a slower processing time. So if you're needing funds, in more immediate fashion, you need to be able to pay rent by April 1st. This may not be the most practical way of going about that. You may need to look at some other options first. They suggest that you reach out to your creditors. So reach out to your bank, your credit card company, any lenders, your utilities company. A lot of them are allowing for late payments, interest-only payments for several months, things like that. So see what you can work out with the people that you're already working with your financial partners. and see if there are, additional lines of credit that you can get, deferred payments, things like that. Talk to your property owners. If you don't own your own building, if you're renting the space, talk to your landlord, see if that you can defer your payments. Can you get a reduced rent during this period? Those are some of the things, and we've seen that throughout the country. A lot of people are responding positively to those kinds of actions, and that may be a way of helping to mitigate some of those costs. Double check with your insurance company. See if you have business interruption insurance. If you already have something like that, that is essentially what that grant, the $10,000 grant program is. It's basically replacing business interruption insurance. So if you already have a program like that, it may be more cost effective just to go through your current insurance. So that's something to take a look at. Some other recommendations, of course, now with everybody, most businesses now having to close their doors and not being able to provide curbside service anymore, things like that. And again, if you're unsure about whether or not you qualify under the most recent restrictions, I'd be happy to go over that information with you. There's still limited guidance on that, and some people have actually taken the step of reaching out to state authorities just to find out if they really do qualify or not. And we'd be happy to, make some of those inquiries on your behalf. So if your business is going to stay open, be sure that you're publishing your public health outline actions, making sure everybody understands how your facility is clean, that you have healthy staff, things like that. If you are unable to stay open, we really encourage you to look into ways of offering digital gift cards. If you already have that program, please let us know and provide us with the link to that so that we can put that information out there and promote it. We would also like to try to work out a digital gift card program for the businesses who do not already have e-gift cards available. So that's something that we could put out there to try to increase income. We've seen some success with that in Easton, Maryland. The Main Street program there is doing it there. They've kind of paved the way for us a little bit and let us know what worked and what didn't. But they've been able to raise close to $4,000 in 1 week from this. So people are out there ready to purchase these gift cards, and that's one way of keeping them involved with your business. If you don't have web pages, online shopping opportunities, if you don't have a social media presence, now is definitely the time to develop that, at least a social media presence. Everybody's pretty much glued to their phones right now, so that's a good way to reach people. And that gives you the opportunity to keep customers updated on things that you're going to offer when conditions approve, or just kind of keep you in the public eye and keep you reminded. We're going to do our best to continue to feature our downtown businesses, to share information about things that are coming up. And anytime you send us information, we will absolutely promote that and make sure that's shared on all of our social media. But now is a good time to sort of start developing some of that yourself. It's a good way of staying out there. So to conclude sort of the presentation section of this, we're here to continue promoting any updates from businesses. Please be sure that if you have updates, or even if you just want to talk about, post a video and share what you're up to, or, pictures or anything at all, please go to our Facebook page. And let me see if I can, sorry, this is where to go. Well, sorry, I can't find the page. There we go. Okay, so if you can go to the Support Downtown Frostburg event page, then just go into the discussion section, and you can post anything about your businesses in there, updates, just sort of whatever's going on that day, and you can post as many times as you want. We don't have any concern about that. We're doing our best to kind of see what's posted out there, but again, we're working on other things as well, so we may miss some. So if you want to be sure to be included on that, please do that. As you can see, we've reached a significant number of people. All of the people who are following this are getting a notification every time that something is posted there. So that makes it a really good way of making sure that your information is getting out there and reaching people. As I said before, if you have any specific questions, and one or two were brought up to me before we started the session that I'm going to continue to look into. I'm constantly in contact with our state offices, with other agencies, trying to get updated on information. And as soon as we're getting it, we're putting it out. But if you have specific questions or concerns, please let me know so that we can, try to address those questions and get that information out there to you. And if you need assistance in applying for any of the funding, grant opportunities, or just kind of want to let us know what's going on and see if there's anything else we can help with, that is what we are here for. That's why you have a Main Street program. Then please do let us know if you're reducing your hours, changing services, or closing during the crisis, so we can put that information out there as well. We are going to be posting every week multiple posts that share all of the businesses that we know of and what their hours are, what their services are. And so, if you don't see yourself on that list, let us know so that we can be sure you're on there. We want to be sure everybody's getting the attention that we can. So that concludes my sort of little presentation section of this and the rundown of the information that's out there. What I'm going to do now is say if anybody has any questions that they don't mind being shared on the recording, please go ahead and speak up.
All right, I have a question.
Sure.
Curbside. Can
Mhm.
we do it? Can we not do it? Who can do it? Who cannot do it? Do we have can I just leave stuff outside my door, which is what I've been doing? What's the parameters on that?
So as far as I can, it seems to be a little, hang on, so I don't
Okay.
kind of stumble around with this. Let me pull up the website here.
Okay.
So they put out the initial explanation of what that is. They've provided additional guidance on that.
Okay.
It's still a little bit murky, and that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that we were asking yesterday, and we still haven't gotten a concrete answer on. But they are definitely encouraging people to stay closed if at all possible. I don't think if you're leaving things out on the street for people to pick up or on the curb like that, I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Okay.
Obviously, not permitted to have people come inside.
Right. We don't let people in.
Yeah,
Okay.
and delivery you should still be okay with if that's something that you're doing.
It is.
Basically, the most recent guidance that they put out, and I don't think this is the right one. The most recent guidance that they put out is that efforts must be in good faith with the intent of the restrictions. So basically, oh, here it is. So, take a look at whether or not you qualify under critical infrastructure. Of course, most of our retail is not going to qualify under that.
Right.
If you're still not sure, it's a good faith determination about whether or not this is going to reduce the threat to human health. As long as I think you're not personally interacting with people, I don't think that's going to end up being a problem.
Okay, good.
If you are unsure about that, you can also call the state police and double check with them, make sure that that's going to be okay. They would be the ones who would be enforcing this.
Oh, okay.
So that would be a consideration as well. I know of at least one other business owner who's reached out that way as well.
Okay.
But yeah, you should be fine with the curbside.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Deidre,
Okay,
I have
go ahead.
sorry. This is Heather from Spectrum. What is the protocol as far as receiving deliveries from FedEx, UPS, mail? How does that working?
So what we have been told, I don't think they have anything concrete written out for us as far as that goes. What we were told yesterday was that if you're receiving things, it should be left outside. You bring it in, sanitize it as best you can, using alcohol wipes, things of this nature. The delivery companies are also being required to take safety measures as far as that goes. But you are not meant to be taking in-person deliveries.
Okay.
I've just been having him drop it off at the door.
Yeah.
since we're closed, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and that's
But
probably
we're
going to
far
be,
enough away, we don't even, we wave.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to end the recording, and then I'll still stay on the line, and we can answer any other questions or concerns. So at this time, I'm going to end the recording. Thank you so much for joining us. Please email frostburgfirst@gmail.com with any additional questions, and let us know if you have any concerns or suggestions moving forward.